Hello, everyone. It is June 3rd, new month, at 7 o'clock p.m. EST. You're watching the DOVECOTE episode 29 with Lynn Codega from Rascal. Lynn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Lynn Codega from Rascal. I'm a journalist.
Yeah,
I write stuff.
I'll, I mean, I'll expound upon your virtues and accomplishments more.
Okay.
I mean, I think people might know you, if people know you from anything, obviously Rascal, and then the breaking the sort of OGL story, um,
hmm
back what like a year ago, a little bit less.
Yeah, so I'm an entertainment journalist, and for the past I think 3 or 4 years I've been really focusing on tabletop role playing games as one of my specialties of focus, I guess is a good way to put it. And yeah, in January of 2023, I broke the big OGL story, and I was one of the journalists doing a lot of work and reporting on that, alongside many other colleagues. And yeah, and I just sort of kept reporting on the industry. And after I was laid off from IO9 in, I believe, October of 2023, I sort of realized, kind of saw, that the industry wasn't really in a good place and wasn't getting healthier, and still isn't in a good place and still isn't getting healthier. And kind of decided that I would probably never be able to write about tabletop role playing games unless I created a space to actually do that. So I gathered a couple adventuring companions, as one does when embarking on a dangerous quest. And Rowan, Zioli, Chase Carter, and I all co-founded Rascal, and officially launched in February of this year. And Rascal is a tabletop role-playing game news site. And we do a lot of, very fun opinion blogs, like very classic Gawker-esque blogs, alongside more reported pieces and interviews and actual criticism. So it's a nice mix of kind of everything in a way. I like it. Anyway, so that's what I actually do. Besides my sort of very glib, I'm Linda and I write things.
Yeah. So something that I don't know if I mentioned this. So I went to college for journalism. That was my bachelor's. Um,
Cool.
and so like I have a lot of memories of that where it was like, hey everyone, like this was like 20, like the late tens, where it was like,
hmm
hey, uh, you're going into an industry that's dying, basically.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. I did not go to journalism school. I just sort of was always a writer and just kind of like fell into nonfiction writing, and then went into journalism as a focus later on. But yeah, it's so hard, so difficult. Freelancing is just feels so impossible. Being a staff writer is like a more and more precarious position as large conglomerates kind of eat up large portions of the industry and homogenize coverage. So yeah, Rascal's fully independent, reader supported, worker owned, and it's just like an alternative, it's something different, and it's kind of the only thing that we could think of when when Chase and Rowan and I were talking about it. Like, going independent was the only way that we could think of to even attempt to forge a part, like a segment of the industry, like find a way for us to like keep our voices and also like keep reporting on what we love to report on. Because I mean, who's reporting on tabletop games right now? It's very small like a small group, right? It's just a
Yeah.
small group of it's just a small group of sites and people, and it's just a shrinking pool. Anyway.
Yeah, it really feels like Rascal is like one of the few folks, like one of the few sites doing like TTRPG journalism in this mode. And it's really cool. I've been really enjoying it, and I'm excited to see like where it goes in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, I need to
That's
bring a
so
bird in.
nice.
I need to let a bird in here. This is Intrero, the interview bird.
Hi.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I'm glad that like um I guess I'm glad that it's going well. Is sort of my main thing. I've said before, like the work that I do on the show is like not it's non-journalistic, right? It's uh I bring things that I see that are happening, and I'm like, hey, we should. Do you want to talk about this really quickly? What do you
I
think
mean,
about this?
I think that like what you do and what a lot of people do that are not necessarily calling themselves journalists. I still think that it is citizen journalism, you know. It's people reporting on the communities that they're a part of, and it's people um talking about the things that need to be talked about and should be talked about. And it's just a shame that there aren't more traditional outlets in the fourth estate for citizen journalists to actually like get their work out there.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean I consider it journalism. I know that like you say that like it's not, but I mean in my eyes it is in a lot of ways, just because it is, you know, reporting on the news and the events and also talking criticism and taking it in as kind of a cultural whole, which I think is a very interesting way to look at any industry is by observing the culture that is surrounding it.
yeah. This is definitely very true. I suppose what I more mean for myself at least is like I like I don't go out and like interview people for like I don't get quotes,
Hmm.
right? Like because I
Right.
don't think I hold myself to such a standard with this show that I could like preserve that information in a way that would be ethical. Um,
Hmm.
but I do definitely agree. I think it is like what this show does, what like Table Talk does, for example. I think it is on some level like a a sort of citizen journalistic endeavor. Um, but yeah, I think what you do is great.
Thank you.
I would love to talk about games. Let's talk
Yeah.
let's talk about games. I would love
Let's
to
talk about
hear what
games.
games are you playing? What games are you reading? What games are you thinking about recently?
That's a good questions. Yesterday I played a game of For the Queen with my friends that I'm probably going to be writing about for Rascal. I'm in a long-standing Orbital Blues campaign, and hopefully we'll be picking that up soon. I went to Millennium Games in Rochester last week and I picked up a couple games. I specifically picked up a copy of Eat the Reich,
Hmm.
and it's gorgeous. It's so cool. So I'm currently reading through that and um really in love with it. I also picked up Notorious by Jason Price, Spectres of Brocken by I believe Aaron Lim. And there was a fourth one I picked up. Oh, Perils and Princesses, or Princesses and Perils.
Oh yeah,
And I forget who that's by, but I picked that one up and I'm very excited by it. I really love the art. I think it's very charming. I like the idea of a twisted fairy tale style story. There's a one by the guy who did Trophy did a Wonderland inspired tabletop game. The girl. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, it's just always very interesting to find tabletop games that like explicitly take fairy tales and center womanhood and femininity in interesting ways. Anyway,
yeah,
so those are the games that I've got right now.
hell yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I still have not gotten around to. I I don't think you listed a game that I've gotten around to honestly. But they all sound
Oh,
great. There's so
yeah.
many.
Gosh, there's so many good games, and I one of the things that I really love about this industry, and you sort of I think we chatted a little bit about it before we went live is the fact that the people who are writing smaller games and like writing indie games are generally doing it because they just really love games and they have something to say, you know? They have something that they really want to get across with their art and with their games. And I think that that is something incredibly admirable. And I think that it's something really, really cool that you can basically pick up any game and go to the designer and be like, what are you trying to say? And they will have these exceptionally beautiful, in depth, thoughtful answers. And it might be totally different from what you think the game is about or even how you played the game. And I think it's just really cool. So yeah, very excited about all of the small games. There's so
Yeah,
many games.
I
There's
was
so many
talking.
games.
What was the thing that I was talking about? Oh yeah, the I think another element of that is like there's a generosity there where it's like, but both in like including people in the conversation or including people in actual projects. Like I think I don't know. I found that like indie TTRPGs and people who are making like really exciting small games, that there's just so much like warmth and warmth and invitingness, and it's a really wonderful space to be in.
Yes, I agree. I think that there's something very specific about games that also I think occurs in board games too, but I've specifically noticed it in tabletop games is that there's this very wide share alike culture, right? Where people are very willing to explain how they developed something and encourage people to use it themselves. You know, system reference documents, I feel, are a piece of tabletop role playing game culture, like designer culture, that I find very hard to replicate, or I've had a hard time finding similar things in other industries, um, where people are literally saying, "Here is how I made this. You can make it too," and doing that on kind of an industrial scale. There's some. I think you can make the argument. It's very much in the spirit of open source software, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting that there's an artistic industry that it like a very specific artistic industry that is basically replicating this kind of open open house artistry, right? Anyway, I like games a lot. And I think SRDs are cool and I think designers are great.
Yeah, I remember back when like me and my friends who play and like and make games, like we were trading around the same $5, and
Hmm.
the Trove was a thing, and it was like, oh, you can just pirate like any TTRPG, um, and like there are maybe arguments to be made about like, is this turning people away from actually buying the thing? However, it was good for like you know allowing us to enjoy those games that people made and wanted people to enjoy, and we would not have been able to enjoy otherwise. And
Hmm.
and for like inspiring our own ideas. And now that I'm passing the same $20 around or so, uh, it's easier to buy games. But um, yeah,
Hmm.
I totally agree. I think that that open ended like philosophy around TTRPG is just so valuable. Where it's like if I talk to someone who I know and I'm like, hey, I don't own this game that you made, can I have it? They'll just be like, yeah, here's a PDF copy, or here's an itch key. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's kind of like what you said. There's a feeling of generosity within the industry. I like community copies. I think they're really interesting. I think that there might be, I think that there could be a better way to do that kind of like community care within community copies.
Hmm.
Because the idea is cool and I like it a lot, but I'm wondering like, what are we really achieving by just giving away our games?
Yeah,
And is it worth it? Anyway, yeah, it's a very cool game designers are very interesting. An interesting breed of people.
interesting creatures.
Oh yeah,
Have you
exactly.
have you explored any design stuff on your end?
Yes, so I've designed a couple games and I've contributed to a bunch, and I have done stuff like that. My first game, the first game that I like really sat down and wrote was a game called Southern Holler that I wrote for Trophy, the Trophy RPG. They
Cool.
did a contest like 4 or 5 years ago. And the reason that I decided to enter that is because they, in the magazine that the contest was sort of being held by, the Gauntlet, um, they laid out very, very clear ways to create an incursion, which is sort of a setting, a game.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I can do a game design. It doesn't have to be a 300-page D&D book. So I entered that contest with Southern Holler, which I was really, really pleased with. Um, yeah.
Hell
But yeah,
yeah.
so I did that, and I've sort of been on and off. The last thing that I designed an item in sort of like a randomized list for Inevitable, the Weird West game, the Weird West
Yeah.
Arthuriana game from Soul Muppet. So I'm in that. And I just signed a contract to turn in a die scenario for Rowan Rook and Deckard,
Oh, sick.
which I'm really excited about.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I really like game design a lot. But I'm very, very careful about not going after specific game design, like calls for game designers, just because I feel like I want to be a journalist before I want to be a game designer. I really like game design. I really, really do. But um I don't want to take opportunities from people who are trying to be game designers exclusively, and I don't want to be seen as leveraging my position as like one of the few journalists in this industry to get those jobs. So generally speaking, it's mostly when friends reach out to me and they're like, "Hey, are you interested in this? Like, would you want to do that?" And I sort of leverage um, how much I want to do it against whether or not that how much it could or does compromise my journalistic integrity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's a balancing act, right? Like I really love game design. I would love to do more of it, but at the same time, I'm very aware that it's I am both like 1 foot in the industry and 1 foot out of it. So, yeah, as I've gotten more and more attention as a journalist, I've stepped further and further away from public game design.
Yeah. There was a really great video essay that I watched by oh god, I just looked it up and I forgot immediately. Um, by a video essayist named In Praise of Shadows, who did a video essay on like horror movies and
Mm-hmm.
how um a lot of it was about the like whole Late Night with the Devil AI fiasco, where like
Right.
a lot of like journalists in the horror film space were like very kind of close or somewhat connected uh with the creators or other creators in horror, and were like very defensive of it. So I respect I respect the I suppose the hesitance to kind of wade in two pools, so to speak. But I do also think
Yeah.
that like I think it's cool that you're also doing game design, because I think it gives some perspective.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where I don't think that you need to be a game designer in order to critique games, but I think it helps.
Hmm.
I certainly think it helps. But yeah, so I'm working on a couple like things privately that hopefully I'll release. Um, I'm gonna try and release like a really small game this year, and then hopefully a larger game next year. But yeah, just again, like you said, wading into two pools can be very fraught, especially in a pool as small as tabletop.
Hmm. Definitely. Um, are there any games that are coming up that you're particularly excited about playing or getting your hands on?
Oh, that's such a good question. I know that I have Mothership coming my way. Sean
Yes.
McCoy.
I love
Sean
Mothership. It's so
McCoy
good.
was like, by the way, like, do you want a review copy? And and I'm like, I actually like, I told him, I'm like, I have a bunch of these, right? Like, I haven't been living under a rock for 5 years, Sean. Like, I have a bunch of Mothership, and he's like, it's okay, you can just, like, I can still get you the review copy, and I'm like, all right, fine. I love Mothership, so I'm really excited for that to show up. I did an interview with I can't remember his last name. His first name is Nicholas. He's the lead designer for Eldritch Automata, and I'm really interested in seeing how that game does, which is, it's kaiju. Like it's a mecha game. It's a mecha game. I love a mecha game. And it's a
Yeah.
mecha game where you're fighting both like unholy demons and angelic horrors, and it's very, very fascinating to me. And you fuel your mecha by committing ego death. And I'm like, oh, Nick.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Okay. Just like that's going very, very, very hard.
It's a cool one.
So yeah. Also, surprisingly enough, I know that people might be shocked to hear this. I am really looking forward to that 50 years of D&D textbook that Wizards
Hmm.
of the Coast is putting out. I love nonfiction texts, and I've really gotten into more and more game nonfiction texts. I just finished reading the new version of Playing with the World. So yeah, I'm just really interested to see what D&D is has included in that.
Yeah, it's cool seeing um it's cool seeing them try a bit more, I guess is my take on it. Like it
Yes.
I've liked some of the alternate covers and stuff. Like I'm
I really like the alternate color covers.
hmm,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're good. I'm like, they've got style. I'm like, ooh, here we go. Like a uniqueness. I mean, the problem with D&D and art is that they are the largest purchaser of fantasy art in the world.
Hmm,
So, because of that, much of their art looks exactly the same,
right.
which means a lot of fantasy art tends to look exactly the same because so much of it is being purchased and published by Wizards of the Coast, either through Magic the Gathering or Dungeons and Dragons. So when we see these covers that have like a different style and have this very like uh, you know illustrative quality rather than this sort of like painterly, the kind of like you know mid-tone painterly thing that they've been doing forever, it's really a breath of fresh air. And I'm just like, gosh, this is so good. It's so good. Do this,
Yeah. I'm a big
please.
fan. I like the way that Pathfinder art looks, but I honestly think those alt covers look better than like Pathfinder does in some ways. Or at least is more
Yeah,
striking to me.
I think so. I especially love I believe it was the cover to the player's guide where it shows all the adventurers around a little campfire with a dragon,
Yeah.
and they're not fighting the dragon. They're not fighting the dragon. I'm just like, what? It's so good.
And
It's beautiful.
it has so many little like cleverly imagined interactions where it's like the tea is being like hung by a rope the thief has and uh you know it's being heated up by the dragon's like hot breath. It's good.
Oh,
I
good stuff.
I need more covers like that for like you know the big fantasy games, not even just D&D. Um,
Mm.
so I can put them on my shelf and probably not play them that much because I don't really play much D&D these days. But
Yeah,
um, yeah,
yeah.
uh, trying to think if I have anything else before we go into the news. uh, oh yeah, tell me about this Baldur's Gate 3 run.
Oh
Tell
my
my audience
god.
about this and tease that article because I think it's really
Oh,
funny.
Good. I'm glad you think it's funny. Let it never be said that I am not willing to make myself the butt of a very good joke. Um, Basically, I don't play a lot of video games. But of course, because of the nature of my coverage, Baldur's a lot of what I've learned about Baldur's Gate 3 has come from memes
Mhm.
and TikToks. So I have gone in with like unrealistic expectations. And so I started Baldur's Gate 3 and I really had no idea what I was doing. I've never played a CRPG before, and I didn't understand that not only are you supposed to like look everywhere and uncover all of the screen on all of the map, like unblack the map, you are meant to loot bodies, and I didn't understand that. I'm like, what do you so when I realized that like you literally have to loot every single body that you find, I was like, wait, have I been playing this game wrong? I didn't. It doesn't
uh,
make sense. It doesn't make sense if I'm playing a role playing game and I'm walking around. I don't think to myself, my character would just like touch these dead bodies and rifle through their pockets for gold. It just like, it was so antithetical to the way that I play games. So, of course, I'm playing the whole game wrong. I don't meet any of my companions until like hour 12 of the game.
oh no.
Like I didn't even meet Shadowheart on the beach. I think I just walked right by her.
Oh,
She showed up at the like the tiefling refugee camp in the Grove. So
woof.
I literally met Will before I met anyone else. I did
So
not meet
funny.
Shadow. I did not find Astarion. I did not find Gale. I did not find Lae'zel. I literally showed up to the Emerald Grove. I saw Shadowheart being emo, and I was like, I know that this is one of those bitches that everyone's talking about on the TikTok, and I need to go talk to her.
She's pretty cool. I like her.
God, so I'm doing Baldur's Gate wrong. I'm doing Baldur's Gate wrong. I'm doing it too fast, too slow, all out of order, and I am going through it, and eventually I figure it out and get all my companions, and I'm playing the game, and I'm trying to like role play, right? So I don't kiss anyone, or I don't like jump into bed with anyone, and no one's like,
Mhm.
yeah, let's just kiss and then like call it a night, because that's not on the table apparently. So I'm role playing, and then I get to like Act 3. I arrive at Baldur's Gate in Baldur's Gate 3, and I realize I don't have no bitches.
It's completely bitchless. It's
Completely
really
bitchless.
good.
I'm just like, I don't have any girlfriends, boyfriends, or them friends. I haven't kissed anyone. What's going on? Like, this is not the game that I was promised. Like, I'm
Uh,
so upset. Like, I wanted my softcore erotica simulator, and I didn't get any of that. What's
yeah,
happening? So, this whole article is sort of like how I came to realize that I had accidentally locked myself out of every single romance. Every
God.
single romance option. And I started by like because I'm so bad at the game, it was literally like almost 120 hours into the game before I realized that I wouldn't be able to kiss anyone for the rest of the game.
That's
So I just
intense.
restarted. So I just restarted the game. I was like, fuck this.
I
Anyway.
the thing is that like when I hear these things, the thing that I immediately think of is like, wow, this sounds very similar to me, a person who like plays video games all the fucking time, has been playing RPGs
Mhm,
since she was like a kid. Um,
mhm.
a lot of the things that you're encountering are like criticisms that I have of Larian's games.
Right.
Like the maps are too damn big, and you are rewarded for doing things that your character wouldn't necessarily do. Like
Mhm.
uh, uh, Baldur's Gate 3 doesn't really have this issue, but Divinity 2 definitely does, where it's like you need to be killing every possible bad guy, like anyone who minorly ideologically disagrees with you, to get enough XP
Right.
to like win some of the major fights. Um,
Yeah.
and also just I think there's so much stuff where it's like I don't know what the other end of this is, but there's a hypocrisy or a contradiction where it's like, on the one hand, the game really really wants you to have these things that you cannot, or that like you are going to miss if you're not careful, and on the other hand, it's like trying to be somewhat accessible,
Yeah.
and that is like kind of incompatible in a lot of ways, and it's a
Yeah.
mess. It's
I mean, I think that, like, my unlearned opinion, as someone who is, like, bad at CRPGs and distinctly bad at Baldur's Gate 3, I got it this round. I'm doing much better this playthrough. But
yeah,
distinctly bad at role play, at, like, computer role playing games, is that, like, it's just not it's just not built for role play. It's just not. It's one of those things where any choice that you make as a character in these video games is simply limited to these sort of branching paths. There's no way that a video game can compete with your own imagination, or even like the imagination of the people who made the game. It's always limited, right?
mhm.
So it's just one of those things where it's like you really can't I can't think of this computer game as a role playing game because I'm treating it like a puzzle to be solved more than I'm treating it like a story to play through. It
Yeah,
is both. I mean, they are telling a story and you are like in a role play, in a role you are playing through. But it's, the loops are puzzle loops. They're not narrative loops because, there are edges to that map. And there's
yeah,
these boundaries that you can just so easily cross when you are sitting at a table role playing with friends that are just not even a part of the makeup of Baldur's Gate 3. And I mean that's just a
that's
computer
just what it
game,
is.
but
Yeah,
it is what it is and I'm having a great time. But it's one of those things where I think to call any computer game a role playing game, I think is hmm doing kind of a disservice to the the way that role playing games work in person.
yeah. I was talking with one of my collaborators, Wendy, um, about like playing a video game with another person and like going all in on a character, right? Just being like,
Mm-hmm.
I am this person. I'm going to use a funny voice the whole time we play, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to react to the things that happen to this character. And the thing that I think we both kind of concluded was like, there are very few games for the game. There are very few video games where the game itself will not get in the way of that. Um, where you will not have to be like, uh, did you upgrade your crystal or whatever at a
Right.
certain point? And uh, like that's just it's the nature of the medium. But I think it is really interesting comparing video games to RPGs in that TTRPGs in that way, where uh, as you said, there's so much you can do with your imagination, and it's awesome. I love games. I love tabletop role playing
Yeah.
games.
Games are very, very good, actually. I know that discourse would like us to disagree, but games are good.
Yeah, I think they're good and cool, for the most part.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I think with that we will hop into news. Here I'm trying to think of how we want to do this. Would you rather we do the one that you'd prefer, the one that I'm just gonna do, or do you want to do the second one first?
Oh, we can go in order. We could do the first one first.
Okay. So do I have my in my opinion thing here? Yeah, hang on. Uh, uh, this is in my opinion, this is I'm going to be talking about the Gupa Banwa situation. None of what I say here is Lynn's opinion, and I'm probably going to go through it fairly rapidly because I don't want Lynn to have to sit here for too long while I go over this. Um, but I did think it was important to talk about because it is a thing that's
Mhm.
happening in games, in like you know the especially like kind of in the sphere that we talk about, um,
Mm-hmm.
on the show here. So on May 28th, there was an announcement from the Gubot Banwa page, Twitter page, basically saying that Wax Makapatag Savadra's behavior had given them reason to remove him from Gubot Banwa. This, according to them, this will not affect the production schedule, as the final text has already been completed. Kickstarter and backer pledges, Patreon releases, and other official materials in the future will be fulfilled as promised. And then they said, we'd appreciate that you respect the boundaries of all people involved. Thank you. They also asked folks not to speculate. So I'm going to do my best not to do that here. I don't want to disrespect anyone's wishes. So then, someone here, Matt Guy, posted something from their Discord, which mentioned that there are people involved. There is privacy of people involved. So this was the 28th. At this point, there was a lot of confusion about what exactly had happened. And, from what I had seen, some calls from folks to be like, hey, it would be good to know what exactly happened here. And then, I believe this was Monday? This wasn't Monday. This was May 30th, this was Thursday. They apologized for their vagueness and posted this slightly long, addressing concerns page. This is the big one, which is what did Walks do? They said there are, Control F victims. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure, because I am trying to go through this quickly and didn't want to sift through text. But yeah, they say here that they're trying to balance assuaging the public and protecting the privacy of the victims involved, and they chose the latter. The parties involved may speak up at their discretion. So the approach they're taking here is they are saying, like, we don't even want to talk about what the nature of these allegations are, and we're leaving it up to to these victims. This, like, I will say for myself, when I read this, I was like, oh, so they're victims. Like, this takes on a more serious character with that in mind. There's a lot of details in the financials here. So there's a lot of nuance here where Walks owns untransferable accounts that need to be transferred over. There's some stuff about the distribution of funds, how funds will be, or how the game will be distributed, intellectual property. And then Walks posted a post about how I think the main thing here was that he left the Discord voluntarily and was kind of presented with this information. Says this was a private matter and hopes folks respect his decision, and mentions the exchange of hands and such. The other element of this that I thought was kind of newsworthy was Julie CL, who did a number of Gubot Banwa APs, is going to be removing them from their YouTube channel. So removing the recorded APs, and that's kind of the sum of what happened. I will quickly give thoughts on this. I'll try and recite some things that I've said to like friends over the last week or so, because I've definitely been talking about this off air. Some people in chat who have heard me talk about this might be tired of me hearing me talk about it, because I think it's an important and interesting thing. So my main thesis on this is just, I think it is good that that this group, if I think it is good for creative groups who are aware that there are issues with a member of their organization that they don't believe could be resolved internally, are willing and able to be prudent and quick in their and that's not necessarily quick, but to be direct and open in their removal of folks. However, there's a key word there, and that's open for me. And I think that this is, I think the anonymity and lack of clarity here creates issues on a number of fronts. And I hope at least it was made clear to Walks what he did. I would have to assume so, just based on the statement. But I do think that there is some responsibility. Again, my opinion. This is my personal opinion. I do think there is some responsibility for a team like this to tell folks in the industry and who are buying their product, even indirectly, even vaguely, the nature of what happened. Because I think there are two sides to this. There's an industry one, which is, I guess there are three. There's the industry issue, which is like, this is a person who has like collaborated on a bunch of projects in the past, and if there is something that is so bad that happened with them that it justifies removing them from the project, then like it would be good for other people to be aware of what that is, or even sort of the vague nature of that. Two is the sort of commercial side of this, which is, if I were a big Gubot Bomblet backer and this was like a thing that was happening, I would want more information. And three is the social element, which is just like, I'm sure that there are folks in the industry who are friends with Walks, or working with or know folks in the Gubot Bomblet team, and I think this puts a cloud of uncertainty in the air with regards to that. Now, I do also want to say, like, I think people who are saying Walks is this project, I think that's kind of overblown. I think there's a lot of really great Southeast Asian creators on this project, and that's not me saying that. That's the folks who are making the project saying that. And folks who know about what's going on in the project, and folks who know the creative environment in the Discord for the project. So I suppose my conclusion is, I think that that they are in the right to do this. It seems like they're doing it through legitimate channels. However, I wish there were more information, just because I think that it makes it difficult for me and for other folks who are in the industry, hiring, collaborating, networking, to know what a proportional response to this is when the proportion, when the size of it is unclear, when the portions have been obscured with with one of those big meal lids. I don't know what you call those, the bell things. Anyway, that's all I got to say about this. Yeah. So if you're okay, I think we'll hop over to the next one, Lynn.
Let's do it.
Okay, this is a much less. It's still heavy, but it's less heavy. So about a, what was it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I talked about the One More Multiverse closure, which was announced on May 13th. So yeah, it was probably about 2 weeks ago. And I realized that I missed some information on it that I think is actually really important, because it was like posted a little bit before I was getting ready for the show here. Actually, would it have been the 13th? What day was that? Yeah, so it was on Monday. It was like 4 o'clock, and I get ready for the show at like 5 basically. So I thought this was really interesting. This is from the Discord, from the OMM Discord, and let me figure out what this person's actual role is before I go yapping about them, about what they say here. So this is a pinned message in the One More Multiverse Discord from Tharik, who is on the dev team. I don't know much more about them. But yeah, so some interesting points here. I'll kind of just go through my notes. Um, they noted that there were issues of hosting and data that were kind of the main thing, which is kind of what me and who was it? It was who did I have that week? Hang on, we're gonna really quickly. I think I remember. I think it's oh yeah, it was Caleb from Triangle Agency. Yeah, yeah.
Oh
What
yeah.
what me and Caleb suspected, which is like it's expensive, like it's expensive to do this sort of thing. Um,
Right.
but also I think the IP concerns are interesting. Um, and I think that this also confirmed for me that like this is not a pivot. This is the end of the company, or at least the jobs of the folks who were working on this project, um, which I think is really interesting. Um,
Yeah, it's a bummer
yeah,
that it was a really unique project. I was really impressed with some of the work that they did, especially for I mean, I really liked what they did for Uzebas. I really liked what they did for Blaze in the Dark. It's one of those things that's just like it's a cool project and I wish it had more time to be successful.
yeah, I hugely agree. I think I talked about this on the episode 2 weeks ago, but like I really think that like for my personal needs, this was like the this was the VTT. Like
Oh yeah?
yeah, because I do a lot of little scenes. I do a lot of like oh you're in this place and there's these characters you can talk to and like
Hmm.
uh I don't do a lot of like running people through scenarios and I this really worked for me in that regard. Um,
Gotcha.
and yeah, it's really a shame. I I hope that the folks who are losing their jobs from this, because this was something that we talked about 2 weeks ago, but also like we didn't know for sure. I hope the folks who are losing their jobs from this find something else, whether it be in TTRPGs or in development or, uh, yeah. I know the job market's fucked right now. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah,
It is not great.
no. I it's what am I
It's not great.
It's not great. Yeah, I mean, I'm still
It's
looking
not
for work,
great.
and it's been a bit of a nightmare. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it
uh I like not to distract from what the folks uh who have been laid off but from one more multiverse are going through. But like the minute that I got laid off, I was like, I'm never gonna get another job in this industry again.
yeah,
Time to pivot. Time to do it myself.
yeah. That's yeah. Something that like I hmm, I'm trying to think of a way to say this that will not make it seem like I'm blaming the people who developed OMM because I'm not. I'm
Mhm.
blaming the people who conceptualized it
Yeah.
and like thought of doing it in this way. I I think that there's like a degree to which the fact that there will not be an open source version and this is like basically not possible does really make me put on my like uh my my like downloadable software hat like where I'm
Hmm.
like I I think that there's a tendency in like tech right now to really like go in with a we're gonna live forever philosophy. And I
Yeah.
think this is a good example of where that fails. Um,
Hmm. That makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is one of the reasons that people are sort of talking about why the move away from places like forums onto places that are like social media has been kind of a net loss for various industries because platforms are not forever. And I think that platforms and apps are just not forever. And you've got to find a way to extricate your work from those models. And we become so reliant on them that it becomes really hard, especially like own thing, its own platform that's just shuttered. Like, now what? You
Yeah,
know? And
it's good that the assets have been able to be like archived at least.
right. Yeah,
Um,
it's hard.
yeah, it's
The
rough.
internet is not actually forever.
Yeah, me and
Who would have guessed?
I think that me and Molly at some point might try and put together like some videos of the Yuzeba's OMM being played, just to kind of keep that stuff in, uh, to have some sort of memory of that thing.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it was really
it's
cool.
yeah, our archival is important, and making things that are like I think there is a an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure type thing where it's like I
Hmm.
think making things that are made to be able to like if you have to pull the plug, uh, save easily is good. But also, I know that technology is not always like that, and sometimes you need to make
Right.
something that a whole audience can use and use on a network, and um, yeah. Is there no way to run OMM offline? Yeah, that's what this is about. Is that like they basically said we're not going to be, we can't get the source code to you, and like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's tricky.
Because it's
Well,
like
yeah,
so big. It's like so
yeah,
fucking huge.
it's huge.
It's
It's web based.
ugh, ugh.
Yeah,
What's a boy to do?
what's a boy to do?
What's a
Um,
boy to do?
okay, I think we're going to take 5. Um, actually, I should probably ask: is a 5-minute break okay?
5 minute break is great.
Cool. So we're gonna take 5, and then we'll be back for emails. We actually have some cool questions, so keep
Yay! Oh,
sending
that's
them.
very exciting.
Yeah, keep sending questions to darlingdemoneclipse@gmail.com, and I will see you all in a little bit. Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. We are back in the Dovecote. I forgot to tell Cordis the newsbird to come in. Cordis coming from just coming from just a beautiful what's a fun like a salt cave. Very
A
relaxed.
salt, a salt cave?
Yeah, you know those caves where like they have like a salt they're like made of salt rock, and you like sit in them and breathe it in. I don't know. I've heard that's popular with the kids these days. I've heard
With the
that's supposed to be
youths.
relaxing.
Yeah, maybe the youths are richer than I am because I don't know a thing about that.
Yeah,
These fancy youths, hoity-toity youths.
there's a lot of them in the kitschy little tourist trap town that I live on in Long Island. So
Ah,
that might those things are connected, I think.
the bougie youths.
The bougie youths, and the like 40-year-old like racist moms, I guess, who are like still like weirdly spiritualist. Anyways,
There's a balance there, a balance to be
yeah,
had, I
there's
think.
a similarity. We're also gonna bring in Apocrypha, the mailbird, as we look at our mail. Um, so we have questions. These don't have a
Right.
name on them, so I'm gonna assume that these are supposed to be anonymous. Um, the first question from this anonymous sender is
Mhm.
what is a media franchise or more nebulous concept that would not make it for a very good TTRPG, but you want it to exist as a TTRPG anyway, just so you can have a way to sneak it into conversation with your tabletop gaming peers?
Oh my
And I've sent
God.
that to you in text as well. Um,
Okay.
I
Let me.
I gotta think.
Yeah, I need to go back to our conversation because I had it popped out. Okay, what
Ah,
is a media
yes.
franchise? Nebulous that would not make for a very good tabletop game. So I think probably my immediate reaction is there are two there are two movies that I really really love that I do not think would be able to be made as a tabletop game, but I would be really interested to see people try. The first one is the one of the first Wachowski films ever made, which is Bound. I don't know if you've ever heard of Bound. It's like an erotic lesbian thriller.
I have not. That sounds good.
Oh, it's good. It's from the 90s. It's an erotic lesbian thriller. And I'm just like, you guys didn't realize you were eggs here? Like, girls, ladies,
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 come
please.
on.
Like, ladies. No straight man could have done this.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Um, so Bound is really, really good. It's this erotic lesbian thriller, and you can see in this film hints of the Matrix. You can just like,
Hmm.
oh, yeah, this is what the Matrix is going to be. It's really incredible. Um, trans women always asking if I've
Yeah.
seen Bound. You anyway. So I think Bound would be a really really fascinating thing to translate into tabletop role playing games because not only does it have like the meta layers of Lana and Lily Wachowski creating this as perceived while being perceived as cis straight men, but it also has this narrative of initiating kind of their opus of work.
Hmm.
But it's this very intimate game between two people who are, trying to figure out whether or not they can trust each other. It's just very fascinating. It's a very, very good film. And I think that trying to make it into a tabletop game would be a really interesting challenge because it would not be able to make it like a cozy game. But anyway, any
Right.
excuse I have to talk about lesbian erotic thrillers and casual conversation, I would love, you know.
Yeah. I'm
Lesbian erotic thrillers like written and directed by trans women. I'm just like, does it get a lot better than this as far as like filmmaking goes?
right. I'm thinking about what the problem is that a lot of the things that I don't think you should make TTRPGs are out of are like people have already made them.
Right.
Like Dark Souls. I don't think you should make a TTRPG out of that. Or
Mm.
I think you should, but I don't think you should put a dodge mechanic in it. I think that's the trap that every Dark Souls TTRPG has fallen into.
Yeah.
Um, I
Gosh, there was one other that I was thinking of. That it was another film that I was like, this would be a horrible tabletop game, but I would love to. Oh, the other one is kind of like the polar opposite of Bound. Literally, the polar opposite of Bound is The Eagle, which is 2011. It's 2011's The Eagle with Channing Tatum and Jamie Bell.
mm,
It's like an ancient Roman swords and sandals movie. I love it so much. It is deeply homoerotic, and I'm just like fully insane for this film. But again, I think just be a horror top game. Very, again, not only very intimate, but really playing against a lot of boundaries of slavery, sexuality, realism, interest,
yeah.
but also really hard. The Eagle. Anyway, The Eagle is a perfect film. The Eagle is a perfect film. Everyone should watch it. I love it so much. It is so dumb, so absurd. And Channing Tatum is like this. I don't. That man was like built to play a Roman soldier. I
That
don't know
sounds
what to tell
good.
you.
Like that's a
It's
good yeah. I can
yeah,
see it.
yeah. So basically, that I think would be a bad tabletop game. But I would love to talk more about the Eagle, 2011's The Eagle, whenever I get the chance. And one of my friends was like, "Linda, you know where to find good fan fiction," and I'm just like, "I am a purveyor of fine fan fiction. What can I do for you?" And they were
Yeah.
like, "I want some good fan fiction," and I'm just like, "Let me tell you about the Eagle. It has some of the best fan fiction out there." I'm just like, "Oh, it's crazy. It's just crazy how good that fic is." Anyway, 2011's The Eagle. Again,
2011's
Channing
The Eagle.
Tatum. Yeah. Channing Tatum is this Roman soldier. Jamie Bell is this native British man who gets enslaved by Romans, given to given to Channing Tatum.
Oh
It's
yeah, I can
crazy. Oh my
see
god,
yeah.
it's so much. It's too much for me.
I can
And then
understand
there's
the
like this.
homoeroticism of it.
Oh, it's given like he's given as like a body slave, and Roman soldier Marcus is like, "I don't want this," and his uncle's like,
Hmm.
"You are literally a cripple. Deal with it." It's just, it's a lot for me personally.
I see.
Oaths, oaths of fealty sworn on the field of battle. It gets me every time. I'm just like, I'm
Yeah.
very basic.
It's a good bit. I love oaths. I love oaths so much. So much of my fucking my kink teacher for Sapphic world is about oaths and swearing yourself to people because I think it's good.
Yep. Oh yeah, it is good. I totally agree with you. I think you would love the Eagle, and I would like to get your full report after you've watched it.
Hell yeah, I will. I'll
Thank
seek it
you.
out.
Yeah.
I Hitchcock's Rope, the TTRPG. Uh,
Ooh.
like the idea. I don't even think this would be bad. The problem with this question for me is like I I feel like anything that I like, if you were like make a TTRPG about this, I would find a way. If I liked it enough. Like
Hmm.
I think that there's something really compelling about like it's a three-person TTRPG. One person is the sort of unknowing like a future victim, and then the other two are like the kind of the like bachelor and the master. Um, the bachelor being like, oh, I don't know if I want to kill this guy, and the master being like, yes, we're going to kill this guy, and
Ooh.
I I think it's a really good dynamic. Rope is I don't Rope is kind of a homosexual homophobic movie. Um,
Oh, big time.
yeah, it's good.
Honestly, Rope would be a really cool three-person game if it was like uh the two men and then the director,
Oh
like the
yeah,
movie director. and you're
That's
role
fun.
playing as like a movie director watching these two men like grapple with it. That might be an
Yeah,
interesting way to do it.
I like that a lot. It's not a flawed question. I think it's a great question. I think the question revealed something about the way that I think about and make games, which I think makes it good. Um, and then a bonus question from the same anonymous person who I mean, it's Duck. Duck just admitted it was them, so uh,
Woo! Thank you, Duck.
thank you, Duck. Last TTRPG system you played is being turned into a AAA video game, a la Baldur's Gate 3. Is this new video
Oh.
game a commercial hit, a massive flop, or an underground classic? Oh.
Hmm.
Mm.
Honestly, so here's the thing. I would consider, I don't know if so the last game that I played was um and I think For the
It
Queen would
was
make
for
a
the Queen,
really
yeah.
good visual,
Sorry, there was a little bit
but
of
I
a
don't
cutout there.
sorry, I think For the Queen would make a very good like visual novel, but I don't think it would make a very good CRPG. But I would say that like my long-standing game that I've been playing for about a year, I think Orbital Blues would make a really, really good CRPG. And specifically like I think because the guy who GM is just really, really wonderful good and develops some really interesting
Sorry, you're cutting out a lot.
stories. Oh, sorry.
No
Can you hear me?
worries. Yeah, you're good now. If you want to just kind of
Okay.
repeat the last like sentence or so.
Yeah. So I think the Orbital Blues campaign I've been the DM that
Oh,
I'm
we're
playing with.
cursed. I'm so sorry.
Oh
You
no.
could you disconnect and reconnect really quick, and we'll see if that.
Yes.
Great, thank you. These things happen, folks. Hello, welcome
Okay.
back.
Yes. Hello. Is it
Okay,
working?
yeah, hopefully. You want to give us
Okay.
a third shot? I'm so sorry about this.
Yeah. No, 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 no worries. Technical problems happen to everyone.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that the Orbital Blues game I'm playing would be great. The DM that I'm playing with is really wonderful, and he's developed some really, really cool parts of this game that I'm really, really loving. And we've run into space Nazis and space evangelists. We've just we're working for the union, but we're also like making deals to secure our future. It's really good. It's really good. So I think Orbital Blues would by far make like a really good AAA video game. Everyone loves dirty space cowboys, and I'm really surprised that there's not more dirty space cowboy AAA games.
Yeah, true.
People people lack verve.
I saw on in like I think it was the PlayStation State of Play. There was a game that was like you're a bunch of space outlaws on a cool ship, and I was like, this looks fun, and it was like this is a 5v5 lane-based MOBA, and I was like,
No.
I I curse you for 1,000 years.
Shame on you, shame on your family, shame on your dog,
Yeah.
dishonor on your cow.
Uh, so what did I play last? I mean, I played Sapphic World today, but I made that, so I feel like it's kind of cheating. It would
Cheating.
be a CRPG. It would be like a Disco Elysium single block style CRPG, I think. Um,
Yeah.
I I think before that I played my friend Lilith's game Euphoria 2180, which is like a post-apocalyptic tactical shooting game, but it's also like very like uh, weird and has a bunch of like horny mutations and uh, it's good.
Yeah.
Lilith's in chat also. She's Jewish Cthulhu. Yeah, I think that would make a really good like Cud style game, like Caves of Cud style top down. I mean, literally, it has some stylistic inspiration from Cud, but something that was like procedurally generated with like biomes and like a bunch of caves you can go down into and factories you can visit. I think that's good. Um, I would love to see. I'm just thinking about like the game that I played last before that. Uh, I mean, mean, I'll also point out, I think Planet Fist could make an interesting shooter. Like, because
Ooh.
I played that fairly recently. Like,
Mhm.
I think the specific thing where it's like, there's in fiction, uh, like, because, like, Jess narrativized the respawning into, like, being reconstructed by nano machines. Um, I think there's like something fun that you do with like loading that back into a
Mhm.
video game. But yeah, I play a lot of the same games over like same TTRPGs a lot because I'm like in a
Mhm.
bunch of playtests. So I don't have the most interesting answer there. That's a good question though. I like that one. Cool. Uh, Next, we have a ton of questions from VIP question asker, uh, mm aka Skibbity Bop Umdada, aka Goblin. We have 8 questions from Goblin.
Oh my
Um,
god. Thank you, Goblin. Wow.
yeah, these are good.
It's so nice.
I may pick and choose a little bit just because. Yeah, we'll see. Um, this is interesting. Uh, Let me know if this is answerable. I guess if you want to read it first, just because I think it's a little vague, but
I think we can talk about it. I think that's something that like we can definitely like I can talk about that.
hell
It's
yeah.
something that I think of all the time.
Good. Okay. Question 1 from Goblin. When it comes to journalism in the TTRPG and connected spaces, what do you think of as the biggest hurdle?
Um, I mean, I think that the biggest hurdle is the fact that it's not a sustainable industry, right? I think that it's just that journalism as a whole is dying and Rascal is working really hard to be this alternative and we are not sustainable. Um but we are all in positions where we have other other ways of getting money. Like I sold my book last year and I'm, you know, working off that advance. And Chase still is still getting money from Dicebreaker and Rowan has really low expenses and also does some other like stuff on the side. So we are making Rascal work, but it is simply not sustainable long term. Hopefully it will be before it gets to a position that like feels dire. So I think that's just, if we are just like at brass tacks, the biggest hurdle is that money, money. I would like to be able to pay rent. Um, but I think that within the space, one of the biggest hurdles is the fact that it's it is not a space that has had dedicated criticism
Hmm.
for a long time, and figuring out how to not only like on my end as a journalist figuring out how to navigate that space of being both in this very very intimate community and this very interconnected ecosystem and also reporting on it is something I think about a lot and something that I care about doing doing well and doing with a degree of transparency that allows people to trust me when I say that, trust me when I say like I verified my sources, or trust me when I say that like I have no agenda here, or trust me when I say that like I don't actually care about Dungeons and Dragons that much. I just have to report on it all the time. I promise I don't have a vendetta against that game. It's literally a game. Um, so it's one of those things where navigating that and trying to figure out how to be not necessarily like obviously like I try to be a good person, but like in this context trying not to be good as in a person, but good as in like gosh, it's so hard to define this. Like trying to be good, trying to be like a good journalist, trying to yeah, trying to be a good journalist and whatever that entails, not necessarily like, you know, a good person. That helps. Being a good person absolutely helps, but that's not necessarily like what I struggle with when balancing journalism in this space.
Yeah, there's a difference between nice and good, and you might come across, I don't know if you have at this point, but you might come across a situation one day where it's like, oh, this person who has been very nice to me, uh, wrote a book that I have to report on for one reason or another that has this, like, you know, extremely harmful thing in it. Uh, and I totally hear you where it's like, you want to be you want to be critical, and you also want to be like kind, and that can be that balance can be hard to strike, if that's what you mean. I don't mean to put words into your mouth.
That's definitely part of what I mean. There's a lot of times when we are so at Rascal we don't have it. We're all co-bosses, so we don't have like an editor in chief or anything. So we all peer edit each other's articles. So there's often times when we are peer editing where it's like I'm reading something and I'm editing it and I'm just like, I understand that we don't like this, but like we can't take these sorts of pot shots. Like I'm so sorry. Like D&D does not deserve to catch this stray right now. You know? Like I understand we are literally just standing on business, but we can't do it. Like we can't. So it's stuff like that where like, either I have to edit something out or someone else does, but we try very hard to just make sure that we are in a position where the community trusts us to report or like have opinions that are informed.
Yeah. That's a great answer. Okay. Next question. Uh, da, 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 da. I I don't think I want to answer this one personally, so I think we're gonna skip that one. Um, it's about some stuff that's tied to the, like, not necessarily the exact thing that happened with the first story, but it's like related enough to it where I'm like, I don't really want to talk about that anymore today. So, question 3 is, what is a feeling you wish more TTRPGs evoked? Do you have any examples of games that have done that? I'm gonna think on that.
Ooh, that's interesting. So I think for me, I want more games. So I'm gonna steal a quote here from Grant Howitt. Grant Howitt writes games that do one thing loudly very well. And I want games that feel loud.
Hmm.
You know? When you're reading it, you just like there's a sense of there's like a presence, there's like a some sort of voice that you can hear there, right? So I think when playing games, I like games that encourage you to be loud. Not necessarily vocal, but encourage you to understand what the voice is and where you are operating from.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense to me. I like tone. It sounds like maybe you're talking about, unless that's not.
Tone. No, no, you're right. It is there is a part of this that is tone, but there's also a part of this that is just a very nuanced understanding of where the players are,
Hmm.
right? And a commitment to giving players a foundation to stand on that goes beyond just here is a setting, here is a story, here is a playbook, but really embodying that kind of voice that makes something resonate in your head. So tone is a part of it, vibe is a part of it. I think it all mashes together. But yes,
Yeah,
loud. I wish more games felt loud.
I think I feel like Jay's games are really good at that, where it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of like uh guiding like voice kind of written into the text, and I think that tends to guide the way that people play them and talk about them. Um,
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. I think I think that the sleepaway of
hmm.
Jay's uh one of Jay's earliest works. I think is still one of Jay's best and is just absolutely fantastic. And there's such a cadence to that piece. It just feels very loud, and I think it's very good.
Yeah. Um, I'm trying to think of my answer to this. I, I mean, I feel like my obvious answer, like the answer people are going to expect from me because of the things that I make and like the way that I cavort and promote myself is like, I want games to make me feel horny, but that's like,
You want
that's
hornier games.
yeah, I do. Uh,
Respect that.
but I think on the other hand, I want games that have a um, I want games that surprise me. I want games where I'm like, oh, that's a like combination of things that I did not exactly expect to be in this world. Um, I love Gonzoism. Um, I love things that are very loosey goosey and not kind of put together the way that you'd expect them to be. I
Mm-hmm.
suppose I think surprise is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next question from Goblin. Um, this is an interesting one. Uh, oh no. Um, I let me know if you want to talk about this one. I'll let you read
Okay.
that one and then.
Da 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 da. Oh, I can. I'll think about it. I mean, yeah, I'm happy to talk about this. This is funny.
Yeah. Question is, fantasy races have been a hot topic every week since people actually started thinking about the games they played. What is the wildest argument you've seen during the weekly shit fight? Oh boy.
I mean, honestly, the argument about so I for one am one of those people that I'm like fantasy races aren't bad. Fantasy racism is bad.
Hmm.
Because I think that, there is something that is if you have, for example, a bird species and you have a human species and they're both like two different species and they have like different races. But for if you have a mechanical rule that says the bird species can fly and you have a mechanical rule that says the human species cannot fly, I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with that sort of mechanical logic. I think, the problem is obviously when it's just like the bird species is always loud
Mm-hmm.
and aggressive. That's the sort of shit where you're just like, man, this is dumb. And even then, it's just like, yes, all the bird species can fly, but some bird species don't fly, and it's not a given. Anyway, the point is, I think that you can mechanize some of those traits because you can kind of make these biological excuses, but even then, it's just like, all right, you can, but you can't, but you gotta just own it. I don't know. I think the most ridiculous thing is that just like it's just fantasy, and I'm like, you guys are so dumb.
You gotta think about eugenics for a second. You gotta read at least a little bit. Yeah. I
It's
totally
just one
agree
of
with
those.
your position on that.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those things where people who say, "I'm not racist," you're racist. That's the one that is always really good when you're just like, this this depiction of this fantasy species is racist. And then people are like, no, it's not. You're racist for thinking it's racist. I think that's my favorite one. It's just like, you guys are so dumb.
A pretty big bread tuber who people still like and speak fondly of did that a couple years back,
Oh,
and drew
God.
a bunch of harassment to someone. Uh, I'll just say it. Dan Olson did this, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
yeah, it sucks. I think it's one of the worst things that you can do, and I think it completely muddies the waters and fucks with people's perception of like the general issue. Um,
Yeah. So I think that's that's like the most ridiculous thing that people will say is like, I because basically what they're saying is like, I'm refusing to engage with this conversation with any semblance of good faith, and I'm going to shut you down immediately because I don't want to think critically about what you're saying.
Yeah.
So it's just ridiculous. It's just totally ridiculous. So anyway, I think my um yeah, the wildest argument is always, I'm not racist, you're racist.
I think the wildest one that I've seen, which I think I've mentioned before on here, is someone was like, here's my treatment for goblins that makes them less racist. And it was like, they're brewed by witches in the depths of hell to be evil creatures. They have sin in their hearts and can only be changed through being tamed. And I was like, you didn't do it. You
You've
didn't land
created
it,
a
pal.
whole new set of problems.
Yeah. Um,
God, I mean, just have a magical race, like just have a piece of lore in your world that's like, you can create a thing of evil by making, like, literally making it like this evil automaton, but
mhm.
don't make it like a whole fantasy species. Ugh. And say like they're all evil because of random thing that I just made up. Like, no. No, you've missed the point entirely.
Yeah, I've done a lot of different things with like designing around race for my games. Uh, like Sapphic World does like a transformation approach where it's like you become an elf or you become a dragon. Um, I'm working on a game with Lilith where it's like uh, dwarves or elves or orcs or whatever are like there are like kind of species elements to them, but then like they just bring in people of like other quote unquote species to like be part of their cultures. So there's like kind of a monocultural thing, but it's also like very open and nebulous and kind of membranous. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then what was the other one? Oh yeah, I've done some star sign stuff. There's fun ways to do it that are interesting. And honestly, I think the default is fine as long as you kind of couch it and uh, couch it in a way that is like respectful and not eugenicist and like actually think about what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want to put in depictions of the way that different species skulls are formed, like
Yeah.
D&D did back in the day.
This is a good question. What has been your favorite setting you've ever played in? Whether it's wildly popular like the Elder Scrolls or just a one shot that happened 16 years ago. Uh,
Ooh, hard one. Very hard. Favorite setting.
I think my favorite is honestly it's probably the setting that I did for my actual play. It's up to you really. Which was a like fantasy post-apocalyptic setting with like some weird religious undertones and a very like cartoony aesthetic. It was so gonzo, it was so weird. Uh and every session that we did in it was just kind of a blast. And I would honestly go back there at some point if I had people who were in that campaign who were interested in it.
Hmm. Yeah, so I think one of the things to know about me is that I got my start role playing on text-based forums. So I
Yes,
did a
God,
lot of
yeah.
oh no, another freak.
uh,
Anyway, so like I spent, decades role playing almost exclusively through asynchronous text-based forums. Because D&D was A, intimidating, and B, had a lot of stinky boys.
mhm.
And I was not into either of those things. And also had a lot of math. Three things I was just not a fan of. So in one of these like asynchronous text-based settings, there was this really fascinatingly like space opera world that was just really really lush and had this kind of it was this very fun space opera, but also like space military opera vibe. And it wasn't Star Wars, but it was definitely this sort of intense opulence to it that was really, really fun to play in. And me and my partners who were role playing in that just did like really, really bonkers things. Yeah. So I think that one is really fun. It's really sweeping military space opera setting that I had on one of these asynchronous text forums.
Yeah, God, text forums and also video games for me were like such a like online games, like fucking Roblox. At one point, I was playing Starbound with people. I was on Goodreads doing forum RP. Like we
You
were,
did wait, you could do forum RP on Goodreads?
yeah, we were out here doing fucking Homestuck forum RP on Goodreads, and it was awesome. Um,
Oh,
in middle school and
oh,
early
that's
high school.
incredible.
Yeah.
On Goodreads, I think that's the most remarkable thing to me is just like I would have never guessed on Goodreads because I did it on forums, I did it on Tumblr, I did it via like some instant messaging stuff. But yeah, never on Goodreads. I think that's too public for me. That's probably where I drew the line.
Yeah, I think you could make private forms. It was also like wet paint was good. I think my introduction to like form based RP was probably on. It was a wet paint max ride RP, and I had never read it before. But my
Oh
Little
my
Big
god.
Planet 2 friend Benjamin was like vouching for me, and so I met a bunch of. I met like the first trans people who I ever knew through that.
Max Ride Forum RP. Incredible.
Yeah, it was really
We
good.
love formative experiences online on role playing forums.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It's
Oh
awesome.
no.
I think a lot of that affected the way that I write things. Where it's like I think a lot about play by post when I write because I'm like
Oh yeah.
I think it's an important part of TTRPGs, and I think it's something that I want people to be like more comfortable with playing my games. And I think it's good. I think play by post is great and is like a really great medium uh, for like more in depth exploration. I'm in a Discord right now where a bunch of awesome game designers are just playing Mothership and play by post. I check in every once in a while and I just look at it and it's
That's
awesome.
fucking brilliant. God, I
Yeah,
love that so much. Yeah, play by post is something I think very, very good. I also think just like that kind of legacy of forum-based role playing has really influenced this generation of game designers,
mhm.
and we don't talk about it nearly enough.
Yeah, I totally agree. Um, like a big thing for me is that like, I for a very long time was not comfortable like doing more intimate role play in via voice and at tables. And those tables didn't exist like or if they did, they were hard to find. Um, and a big thing for me right now is like one creating public tables that can have like more exploration of like kink, romance, intimacy, stuff like that. That's
Mhm.
like safe. And two, making games that are like if you are in that state that I used to be in, where it's like I don't know if I want to be. I don't know if I want to be talking about gay sex at the table. Like
Mhm.
having games that partners can share or friends or friends with benefits. Like I think
Mhm.
I think it's good. I think this is the future. Um,
Agreed.
yeah,
I'm down with it.
hell yeah,
Yeah, I am a proponent and a long time asynchronous text-based role player.
good.
Oh gosh, it's so funny to me.
Um, okay, this is a good one. Uh, where have you found the most interesting TTRPGs you've read? How would you recommend finding texts like that?
Oh gosh, this is such a hard one because it really gets to the root of one of the big problems in tabletop role-playing games as an industry is that discoverability is real shit. Discoverability is bad and there's no way to really find an interconnected network of like getting recommendations. There's no way to like if you don't see something from someone you know, you're probably never going to see it because your circles are so small comparatively that it just like a lot of things just like won't enter into your circle even if you are trying to be receptive to that sort of work that is outside of your typical sphere of notice. So,
Yeah.
Where have I found? Honestly, just browsing itch. Unfortunately, I don't have a good answer to how would you recommend finding text like that. I don't have a good answer. Um, I don't know. Subscribe to Rascal News. I should plug my company, right? I
Yeah,
should
let
be
me
plugging.
here, look at I would specifically point at the announcements page. I've posted the main page as well, but yeah, the announcement, like if you want to look at like things that are just coming out now and people are like posting about their own work, that's a good place to go. Um, but also Rascal in general, the articles there, you know, great more in-depth recommendations from Rascal staff, and you all should
Thank
look
you.
at that. Um,
Yeah. So I think discoverability is just like a huge problem in general. But often it's just word of mouth, which is a huge bummer of a response, right?
mm,
It's not a good response and it's not a good way to discover new things. I would say word of mouth. Luckily I get a lot of games emailed to me, which is nice. Also, one of the things that I've been doing is I've been looking for older games and reading through older games and trying to figure out like okay well what is the first thing Jay Dragon ever wrote, what's the first thing Vincent Baker ever wrote, and what's the first thing any of these, you know, what's the first thing Janelle Jacquet ever wrote, and just trying to figure out like what what formed the games that we play now, how it worked, how they came together. So that's been a way to discover new games. um just as an FYI, the first game that Vincent Baker ever published is Killing Puppies for Satan.
that's awesome. I had no idea.
Yes. Oh, it is a very, very good game, and it's very much about like how you're when you are trying to be a creative in a corporate job, how it just feels like you're just constantly just killing puppies for Satan.
Mm.
It's very good. Um, so looking at older games is a way that I'm finding fun text to read. Um, Dogs in the Vineyard is another one by Vincent Baker that is an older game, but it's just so brilliant in so many ways with the way it sets up the format of the like gameplay loop. And I'm just like, the bakers have always had the juice.
Yeah, fucking Firebrands is a big one for me in the
Oh,
Baker
Firebrands
library.
is good.
Yeah, big fan
Firebrands is
of.
so good.
I think that's a really good point. It's like looking back, or like looking back, looking sideways. Like sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you read something and it might not be very good, but like you'll learn something from it, or there will be parts of it that you like, or you know, I I think there's a lot of potential to find things that are outside of traditional outlets. I
Mm-hmm.
also feel like I should start just recommending games on here because I think it would be good. But yeah, no, like
Yeah.
I totally agree. I think looking at itch, looking you know, talking to people, talking to the cool trans people who know things is good. And yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So read rascal.news. Another thing, another game that I read recently that I reviewed for Rascal is a game called Violence,
Hmm.
which is the full name is Violence, the tabletop game of like egregious murder and bloodshed.
Yeah.
And it is 25 years old. It is literally half as old as D&D this year. And it's published by this it was written by this man named Greg Kostikian, who was literally like in the 70s designing dungeons, you know. He is he's this guy who's been designing role-playing games since role-playing games became a thing, right? And by 1999, he had just become so fed up with how wargaming was working and how people were like, yeah, you know what's great for generating experience? Genocide. And he's like, this is bad.
Mhm.
It's like, maybe this is bad, actually. So violence is this game that's just like, you could not publish this game today. It would break people's minds. It would just melt them to goo. Uh, it just is commenting on every single piece of discourse that you could possibly imagine is being commented on in violence 25 years ago. It has stuff about fantasy racism. It has stuff about, like, do you remember when there was that whole thing where it's like, what is it necessary to put in a what is an RPG section into your rulebook?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It has that. It
That's
literally has that.
wild.
Like, for in in the very first chapter when it has what is an RPG, the answer underneath that heading is, if you don't, like, brother, if you don't know, this ain't the place to find out. And I'm like, Greg. So yeah, it's just this. It is just such like an actively aggressive text. It calls the reader like motherfucker and asshole, and it's just like so mean. Anyway, I think looking at old text is really fun, and I think violence is, it's in the Creative Commons. You can literally just Google violent designer X. You will find it. I reviewed it on Rascal. It's free. It's out there, and I just cannot emphasize enough how good reading that is for any game designer, especially game designers that are interested in satire at any level.
Yeah, I think there's a degree to which like TTRPGs have a lot of uh I'm thinking of a metaphor that's usually used for like people, but like a lot of like design missing stairs, like a lot of things where it's like people are constantly coming across like, oh hey, this this step of the staircase is missing. How do I get over this? And it's like, well, someone figured out how to do it years ago, but you just didn't know about it. Um, and I
Right.
think that looking back is really important. I totally agree. Um, okay. I think we'll do one more here. This is a good one. I think I think we're gonna hold on the last one because it's a little. Um, I think we're out of time here. So this next one is how are you able to write what's in your head efficiently? I struggle so much just to get words down when it comes to my personal projects. I think this is a good one for like, two people who have done both game design and journalism to one
Mm-hmm.
degree or another. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So my my best the best advice that I can give, and the best, you know strictures I can sort of set out, is that writing is a practice, and you have to practice. Like, you just have to sit down and write. And I don't think that there's any way to describe to, like, there's no cheat code to writing efficiently. I think you just need to learn how to write, and efficiency will come. I think that it's just the fact that, like, you have to sit down at your desk and you have to write, and you have to do it regularly and consistently and as often as you can. And that is the only way that you will get better, and that's the only way you'll write efficiently. It's just like, I, it's a practice. You cannot wait for inspiration. You cannot wait for anything. You literally just have to sit down and be like, I'm going to write 100 words. I'm going to write 500 words. I'm going to write 1,000 words. And you just have to do it. You just have to do it. Like,
Yeah.
there's simply like no other. I struggle too. Like, I just want to say that, like, I struggle to write quite often, but it's just one of those things. Like, I have written every day of my life for years, if not for a decade at least, and it doesn't matter. It's like, I write novels, I write short stories, I write games, I write articles. I have written something every day of my life for the past 10 years. Even when I'm on vacation, even it just doesn't matter. Like, I'm always writing. So yeah, I don't know. Efficiency is a myth, and so is inspiration. But yeah, I think it's just one of those things. You just it's a practice. I'm so sorry that I'm just repeating myself. I'm just stuck in like a little autistic brain loop
No,
where
you're
it's
so
all I
right
can
though.
say. So sorry. It's just like it's just a practice. You just got to sit down and do it. Writers write. That's it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I do think that there are some like verbal, like, not these aren't tricks, but these might be ways to get the juice flowing a little bit. Like,
Mhm.
I think trying to like say what you're trying to say verbally, even just to yourself, can be useful. Because a lot of us talk every day, or we'll talk more than we write, and it's like you're putting words together in your head for speech. Like I think it kind of winds up just being a question of like putting that on the page and feeling confident in what you're doing there. Um, and being aware that like you have a you have a backspace key for a reason. You know, things will get deleted and reworked, and like sometimes it's just about, as Lynn said, writing, putting the fucking words down on the paper. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, I always and if I'm ever like really really stuck, like I'm looking at a blank page and I'm struggling to just even start something, I generally outline. And I when I'm doing longer pieces especially, I have an outline and a what I call a dump document where I just put in ideas, links, thoughts, like stuff that doesn't even make sense. And eventually I get to the point where I'm like, "Oh, okay, I know what I want to say now." And I open a new document and I start there. And usually it's one of those things where it's like, "Oh yeah, this is the sentence that's actually good." And then I like cut and paste it into the new document and I'm like, "Oh yeah, now I can write." I think just, being really unself-conscious about the writing that you do. And it's like there's a backspace key and there's also just starting a new document.
yeah,
You don't
absolutely.
you know, I don't delete very much, honestly. Whenever I'm in a space where I have to start something over, I generally like open a new document and just start over because that's just how I work. Obviously, everyone will work different, but yeah, just getting it all out, going to a new document, and being like, this sentence I really liked. This was a good idea. Let's go from here.
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
try it again.
Let's try it again. Um, I think we'll wrap up there. Thank you so much for coming on, Lynn. It was really great to have you. Uh,
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Is there anything you have not plugged already that you'd like folks to be aware of or check out?
No. It's just Rascal. That's all I have going for me right now. It's
Look at
all
it.
I got,
Look at
guys.
it now.
It's all I have.
Go on,
Please, for the
Rascal.
love of God.
Get on there. Uh,
I'm sure that there's other things that I could plug, but no, I'm really grateful that the community has that like various communities have come out and supported this weird little independent journalism site that I started with two of my friends who also happen to be very good journalists.
hell yeah. I need to pick who I'm rating. Let's see. Uh, my friend Jin. Oh my gosh, my friend Jin is playing one of the first people I ever played D&D with back in the day is streaming Slime Rancher 2. Go say hi to Jin for me. And yeah, everybody take care. I'll be back next week with, who do I have? I think it's Marn from Moonshot Pods.
Nice.
Yes. And then I have Aaron King, and hoping to get some more folks in the weeks to follow. But yeah, take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Remember, if you don't like what you see, you can change it. It's up to you, really. Goodbye, good luck, and have fun!